This is an important point in the movie Kiss the Ground that we are going to see, which is that we must care for the health of the soil just as we care for our own health. Just as the microbes in our gut make up such a large percentage of our body, our body is 1% us and 99% microbes. And the microbes and bacteria in our body actually digest what we eat. It's not us eating, it's the microbes in our body. And so just as we think about our own health and our own gut health, we also need to think about the health of the soil, which has teeming microbial communities which help grow these plants, foster these diverse cultures, and ultimately sequester carbon in the form of beautiful plants rather than in packed smoke pumping into the air.
Taking care of the microbes in the soil is critical for human health. But spraying the soil with toxic chemicals, well, does something else.
All of our soils that are under chemical conventional agriculture are almost completely devoid of microorganisms.
We can keep trying to Frankenstein soils by pumping chemicals and artificial synthesizers to try to get plants to grow, but why not just not cease killing the microbial cultures with these antibiotics that we're essentially dumping all over the plants? It's a very heavy-handed operation in monoculture and big agriculture.
Soil with toxic chemicals kills the very microbes we need to give us health and pull the carbon from the atmosphere. The more tilling that's done, the weaker the soil gets, and the more farmers feel compelled to use chemical sprays. This is the vicious cycle of industrial agriculture. And that cycle was developed as a result of war.
This is wild.
The roots of industrial agriculture go back to a German scientist named Fritz Haber. Haber invented a process for making synthetic nitrogen fertilizer that increased food production. His other scientific breakthrough was the creation of poisons known as pesticides. Haber used his pesticides as the first chemical weapons in history. Then he developed the poison used in the gas chambers of the Holocaust. When the war ended, U.S. chemical companies brought Haber's poisons back to America and rebranded his toxic chemicals as pesticides for American farms.
So what happened is we have all this excess poison lying around. Why not make some money off of it?
Dow set out to demonstrate the effectiveness of its chemical killers on a nationwide scale.
When the war ended, all the energy that went into fighting the enemies in the world went into fighting the enemies on the farm.
All of a sudden, chemical fertilizer, nitrogen was available, and farmers could toss that on a field. Even if they hadn't taken care of their soil, they could get a good crop for a while.
Together, these wartime innovations created the most powerful industrial food production system the world had ever seen.
We created an infrastructure around single types of industry, and then we decoupled livestock and row crop production. We found people who were really good at raising livestock, and you found people who were really good at growing row crops, and you split those two camps.
That ushered in this big philosophical shift in terms of how we approached farming. Instead of understanding and honoring natural processes, we could just throw out these chemicals. We just throw out more and more of them. It kept going up and up and up.
It takes more nitrogen now to raise a bushel of grain than it did in 1960.
our chemical.
There's a real addictive process happening here, because the more chemicals are used, the more unhealthy the soil is, and so the more chemicals are needed. Just like our deteriorating health, if we're in a hospital, if we're unhealthy, our immune system is compromised, and we're more open to being affected from problems from the outside world. So this is a problem that should definitely be fixed, and the answer is to focus on the soil health, which is where all this life comes from, rather than just utilizing and being utility parasites.